right, we are here right now. Episode 10. So much fun. I'm so excited to have you here, especially with these topics. I want to introduce my friends here, my guests. Jaime Philbrick, welcome to the show. You've been on before. Of course, Jami, you know, entertainment reporter with M-Time China. He's a red carpet pro. He's been all over the place. He is a member of the Hollywood Critic Association as well. And his pasts include editor at Relativity Media's IamRogue.com, as well as reviewer at MovieWeb.com. And on my other side here, we have Joel D. Amos. Sir, welcome. Thank you for coming on. The Movie Mensch is what they call him in the streets when they see him passing by, or people, they whistle and they yell out the window, hey, Movie Mensch. I mean, it happens all the time. I'm sure it has to.
All the time, dude.
Yeah, it has to. Also a member of the Hollywood Critic Association and a former editor of MovieFanatic.com. Thank you both for coming on. I definitely am excited to get into the show and talk about all the things that are happening. As much as movies aren't coming out, movie news is still very much moving forward. That's one of the weird things that, like, you know, all these things are happening and we're very much rebounding off of what's happening constantly. So before I get into some of our topics today, which are very fun, I want to get into a couple of things that just came out. So first and foremost, let's watch this little clip and just kind of get some thoughts on this.
The bell's already been rung, and they've heard it. Out in the dark, among the stars. Ding dong dong, the god is dead.
Now, of course, that was the Snyder Cut, the mini teaser that's supposed to hold us over for I don't know how long. But did you get a chance to watch that prior, or was that the first time for you guys?
No, I saw it.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And so what's your main feelings, thought on this? Is the Snyder Cut gonna change your feelings on the movie, or is it going to just be something that is an extra option during these dark times? Let's go, Jami.
Well, I'm very excited for it. I know a lot of the criticism has been, the studios are kowtowing to the fans and that kind of thing. And I kind of look at it more from the angle of, I think one of the problems that the DCEU has had and Star Wars franchises had, and maybe some of the Fox Marvel franchises, is the studios hire filmmakers, good filmmakers, and don't let them do their job. And then they meddle and they get involved, the studio heads, and they mess everything up. So the idea, I look at it more like giving filmmakers back their film. So the fact that Zack Snyder actually gets to make or finish the movie he set out to make, I think is great for Zack Snyder. And, I think it's a great thing for HBO Max because they need content. So, I mean, I'm open to the David Ayer cut. I'd like to see a better cut. I've always believed there was a better cut of Green Lantern that the director didn't know the material and messed up some of the visual effects. I'd love to see a new cut of Jonah Hex because I actually worked on that in production, and I know that the director's first assembly was 100 times better than the final result in the theaters because there was a lot of meddling from the studios. And so I'm all for filmmakers, maybe with this streaming technology, getting the opportunity to go back and fix the films that were taken away by the studios, not unlike Richard Donner got to do 30 years after he had Superman 2 taken away from him. So right. Lord and Miller Han Solo movie, that would be interesting. They did win an Oscar the same year they got fired, so someone made a mistake over at the Lucasfilm.
Well,
so
if they want to make a
I'm all
stop
for
motion animation, I'm all for it. But I don't know if there's the footage left anymore for them to do anything.
I mean, agreed. I was being a bit facetious. But
I know. No, and that's funny. But you are throwing some Hail Marys there. Jonah Hex, Green Lantern. I mean,
I'd like to see it. Well, listen, HBO Max needs the content. I mean, that's one of their biggest problems. And I wish they would cross-pollinate with DC Universe more. I know they're going to run season 2 of Doom Patrol, but there's no reason they can't be running Stargirl. And there's no reason DC Universe shouldn't be running the Zack Snyder cut and J.J. Abrams, Green Lantern and his whatever Justice League Dark that they're planning. Like, I don't really like Warner Brothers' whole business model of, hey, DC fans, buy this site, but then you're going to need to buy this other one if you want to get our movie. Like, I just don't. They need to cross-pollinate or better with that.
I want to say I have watched the first 3 episodes of Doom Patrol, and I love it. I love that show so much. It is one of the most unknown shows out there that people need.
I just finished binging season 1.
Oh my! When you get into season 2, the first episode starts off. It's just this wonky, campy, crazy, fun show. So I
and DC Universe has been doing good stuff. The Harley Quinn animated series is bonkers. It's like an X-rated version of Batman: Brave and the Bold. It's ridiculous. And Stargirl is a little bit more of a CW-ish DC Universe show, but I like it. So but back to HBO Max, they need content. So if you want to go back into the DC superhero library and fix some of the stinkers that they've made, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I wish the people who wrote the Harley Quinn cartoon had done the movie, because that thing was just so much. It was bland compared to what it should have been when it came to Harley Quinn. So, but let's go to Joel right now and your thoughts on this and having this cut in this new version.
A couple things struck me. First of all, having a director's cut, actually, if we look back in Hollywood history, it's nothing new. We've been doing director's cuts for decades. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola has been tinkering with Apocalypse Now since he released it, for goodness sake. So I've never really understood the big deal about releasing a Snyder cut, because it's his movie, it's his director's cut. At some point down the line, there ought to be a chance for us to see it. The other thing that really struck me is watching that teaser is the incredible amount of wholesale change that must have gone on with the studio. I mean, we're really talking, if the tease is to believe, we're really talking a wholesale new movie. And I had never wanted to see a Snyder cut because I wasn't that impressed with Justice League. I didn't need to revisit it. But because of that teaser and knowing the incredible amount of change that it would bring to the entire plot, the story arc, the character interactions, now I'm utterly fascinated.
I think so too, and it's surprising to see what was already in the bank as well. So that's going to be very interesting too. And then to add Darkseid, which go ahead.
I was just going to say, to Joel's point, one about directors, I mean, I think Ridley Scott has like 5 cuts of Blade Runner out there. So yes, this is not new. And then to the second point of there being such, I really do think it's going to be a completely different movie. Yeah, there'll be a few scenes that we, sort of incorporated into the Whedon cut. But, if we're to believe what Zach's been saying, I really think there's a completely different movie there. So, maybe not to the point I was saying before, maybe there's not a completely different Green Lantern or Jonah Hex, but I think there is with this one, and it's worth us discovering it. That to be said, I don't want fans to get too disappointed if it's more similar to Batman versus Superman, which some fans didn't like to begin with. But
right, well,
that's certainly going to be the tone.
But I really did enjoy Man of Steel, so maybe there's some things in there that because I rewatched all these. We have all had the time to rewatch all these things, and I have rewatched all these things as well. So I am very
the Batman versus Superman extended cut is really Zach's director's cut. It's 100 times better than the theatrical, because the studio was like, this has to be 2 hours. It's a better movie with 2.5, where you actually have Lex Luthor's plot points instead of editing them out.
I think the real thing I'm talking about here is more the fact that they're looking to spend $30 to $40 million more to do this. This isn't just an editor in the back room kind of tinkering around, putting some stuff he already had together. This is possibly reshoots. This is more special effects, all these things that take this much more money. So that's why it has that much more on the pedestal of a director's cut and remake almost,
Absolutely.
And I think this is also becoming an issue with Snyder too, with one word: legacy. And I think that, he really got smacked around. and he probably felt that it wasn't deserved. And he's like, let me show you what I wanted to do, because this is about a legacy. And if you ever talk to a director, they all care about legacy.
Right.
And HBO Max is going to make back that 30 to 40 million just in subscriptions, just in, the content. Like that's, if you think about it, the amount of money they spent to release Justice League theatrically, and then what they got back, to put in another 20 to 30 million to maybe get another 100 million or 200 million in subscriptions, it's a no-brainer.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's definitely up there, and I do enjoy a lot of things that HBO Max is putting out already. I watched a little bit of Love Life. I watched Not Too Late Show with Elmo, which is pretty funny too. So there's some definite options in there, but really they own me at Doom Patrol. You bring back Doom Patrol, you give me that option, I'm there. So I was definitely for that. So moving on, let's go to the next topic now. And this one is also a little bit new right now. All the movie theaters, of course, are talking about reopening, but none of them have a must-wear mask policy outside of employees. So, the top ones. Let's just say I know Alamo Draft House and a lot of other ones are still doing it.
Joel has breaking news on that.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Literally, just like about 25 minutes ago, AMC reversed their course. They are now requiring masks for audience.
That's good.
And good for them. Yeah.
Good for them. So now if you don't want to wear a mask, there's a theater chain to go to. If you feel comfortable wearing a mask and need a mask to go see a movie, there's a theater chain to go to.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm gonna see what Regal does, which of course they follow Cineworld now out of UK. That's who owns them now. So it's interesting to see because they're going to be rebounding off of what happens not only in the UK but US at the same exact time. So we're definitely going to see how that affects. But the main thing is going to be, are we going to have the regular viewers, and are the older viewers going to go? They're the ones who went at the 2 p.m. screenings. Even if they had the senior discount, they were still money on a regular basis. They still spent popcorn money and drink money and things like that too. So that's definitely going to be the gauge of, when do people go back, and who of the people who love movies actually go back as well. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. But I did want to also talk about the fact that UK, as they're opening right now, there's a huge just amount of movies that are being re-released for these theaters right now. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but in UK, they have all these re-releases they're doing because, of course, there's no new movies. And there's so many B movies that you're not going to put in a theater. I mean, there's just no way. But you have Lawrence of Arabia, 1917, Back to the Future, Singing in the Rain, Four Weddings and a Funeral, With Nail and I, which I would love to see in the theater, 2001, and of course all the Harry Potters and different series like that too. So I'm really looking forward to having people have a chance to kind of enjoy some of those movies. Maybe it's not the high ticket price that you would expect because it's an older movie, but it's still a reason to go back. So I mean, is there any special movie you guys would love to see re-released in the theater that's not maybe a 50th anniversary or 40th anniversary of Blues Brothers, which just happened, or Jaws or anything like that? How about you, Joe?
I wouldn't mind seeing the original Blade Runner on the big screen. I'm not sure. I'm still working out whether I will return to the theaters. AMC making masks mandatory certainly help things, and that's my local theater here. But yeah, I would really treasure seeing that original Blade Runner up on the big screen.
How about you, Jamie?
There is no movie that you can put in a theater that I can't see on my big screen TV in my living room that'll get me to go to a movie theater and threaten my life in the next, honestly, probably two to 3 years. I mean, I'm a bit more of an alarmist on this than everyone else. I'm barely left my house in almost 4 months. I take this very a
little bit right now. The man of the woods here.
Yeah, I take this very, very seriously. I wish more people would. Yeah. I'm glad that AMC is, this is not a political issue. This is a health issue. Wear a mask. And so I'm glad that AMC decided to, I don't know why they decided to not have the masks first, but I'm glad they decided to have the masks. So, I mean, look, there are movies I'd love to see in a big screen, some that I have seen. Bullet is one of my favorite movies, Steve McQueen. It was great to see that at the New Beverly maybe 10 years ago. A double feature with Thomas Crown Affair. I've seen The In-Laws on a big screen. Dark Knight is always great. I mean, so there's certain movies I'd love to see, but I can see him here. I got a really big screen back there, Derek. I can see him here. I don't need to. I don't need to worry about a guy sitting next to me who's coughing, not wearing a mask. Like it's ridiculous.
So
it's
even
ridiculous.
if we have a vaccine, are you still going to wait a little bit after that, or is that going to be your?
Oh no!
point?
If there's a cure, it's over. Okay. But it's not over till there's a cure. And as far as I know, there's no cure right now. So everyone that says it's over, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yep.
I heard if you drink Gatorade and mix it with mint leaves as well as hair of the dog, you'll be fine. So I don't know.
I heard someone say you could drink bleach and inject light down a lamp down your throat.
Lights specifically.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, going through this last thing I want to do because I loved him so much.
Is that working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
good.
that killed everything. That was that was your UV light.
Yeah, you can go outside now, buddy.
Yeah, it stops viruses and vampires. You'll be fine. All right.
Good.
So last thing I want to say is because I love him so much, I had a chance to interview him a couple of times. Very sad news. Ian Holm has passed away. Of course, beloved man. This guy was amazing. And people are trying to maybe place him in this first few seconds I'm showing you right now. But let's start off with, of course, Bilbo Baggins. Easy. Bilbo Baggins, fantastic in the movie. But if you go back, this man has so much history. Alien. I mean, if you remember that, I mean, there's so much great stuff with him. But in my personal opinion, the one that I love that I will always remember is The Fifth Element. So that's kind of where my love for him comes back again, because that's one of those movies that I rewatch constantly. So to see his roles, his humor, his his little physical comedy that goes along with it is always kind of one of my things too. So I'm very sad that we've lost him. So I just want to take a moment to say, rest in peace. And, if anyone gets a chance, please rewatch some of those movies because he was a famous and amazing actor. So,
hey, what was the independent movie from like the late 90s that he starred in with Sarah Polley? It was like it was sort of a critical darling. It's a really good, I want to say Sweet November, but I don't know if that's the right title.
It's Charlize Theron.
that was
Yeah. It's something him and Sarah Polley. It's really, really great.
I have IMDb here will tell me what is happening. So you said early 90s.
I think it was late 90s, mid to late 90s, like 97, 98-ish. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Is that Sarah Polley or did I just make that up?
No, that's Sarah Polley. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a great one too.
That was a good movie too. Yeah, for sure.
He's one of those actors that obviously everyone knows him from Lord of the Rings, but like you said, you're like, oh my God, he was in Alien. He was at this one and that one, and that. Yeah, he's got an amazing career.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and he was in the Big Night.
The Big Night as well.
Is that the one with that was Tony Shalhoub and yeah.
Stanley Tucci.
Nick
You're right.
Lunch,
Stanley. Yep.
The Advocate.
Thank you,
I mean, I'm going through all the things he's done, and his oldest at Brazil. I mean, there's a lot.
Oh my God! You're right. He did a lot of Terry Gilliam stuff, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's right.
I was looking to see if he was in the Adventures of Baron Munchausen, but I don't see that either. But yeah, amazing actor. So we look forward to everyone get a chance to kind of invent him in your minds of who he is and what he delivered. So, all right. So moving from there, let's go into our debates. These are the things that we want to talk about. And the first big one right now is, of course, the Oscars. Oscars have been moved back. We now have a new date. We now have a new window for, I guess, designers to get dresses ready. I don't know what the, what their plans are for this, but we are going back to April 25th now. So first and foremost, do you guys think that we will have enough movies and opportunity to make the Oscars in April, which is already kind of halfway through the year, worthwhile? Or is this just kind of a money grab that they're still holding on to this? Let's start with you, Jamie. Let's go to Jamie first, actually.
Okay.
Money grab, they're still holding on to. I think it's too early to, I mean, I think it's good that they pushed it back to April and there's something to kind of go for, but we really do not know what's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 months. It looks like Tenet's going to open next month right now, and then we're going to have the rest of the movies come out in August, September, October, and in the fall. We'll see. I mean, a lot could happen before then. And, I've attended the Oscars for the last 5 years in a row. And I can tell you right now, I have no idea how they'll do that. Mm-hmm. Just the amount of people you have on a red carpet. I mean, obviously they'd have to limit it, but then do you have people, the stars wearing the masks? They'd have to limit the press clearly. But the amount of crew and, do they limit how many people can be in the theater? Like, do they say no, second string editors and crafts people? Do you know what I mean? Like, do they get rid of, and just have sort of the director and producers and the stars in there? I don't know right now how you would do the Oscars the way they've done it before. A virtual Oscars, that might be something to consider. Again, but we don't know if there's going to be enough movies in theaters the rest of the year to, and then I know they've changed some of the rules with Netflix and some of the streaming stuff. So maybe you have more of those nominated. I think it's good to plan for later, but they also need to keep in mind that it may just not happen.
No, and I agree with you on some of those points, especially since I know some of these Netflix especially is already starting to get some screenings and some opportunities to already get like Spike Lee into your view as Da 5 Bloods as being one of those movies already that should be in the top of your list for the rest of the year, which is
I think that would have been that would have opened a can if the pandemic didn't happen. So I think regardless of Netflix, that would have still been a front runner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think the pandemic helps or hurts Da 5 Bloods at all.
No, I don't think so either. But I think it helps them the fact that there's not a lot of choices out there already.
That's true.
Yeah, for sure. Jamie, one thing I want to mention is when you get close to the mic, it overblows a little bit too. So
okay,
just give you a heads up.
We'll stay right here.
Yeah, no worries. But besides that, I will say that there's only like maybe 2-3 movies so far this year that have really blown me away. And of course, we always wait till October after TIFF, and they start to release the awards movies during the last quarter, of course, too. But I don't know if we're gonna have that opportunity depending on what the year we have or the theaters we have. So that's definitely something.
And there's no TIFF, there's no con.
Yeah.
They're talking about trying to do a Venice and Italia ride. I don't see how either of those happen. But
unless they invite one person at a time to a cabin to watch a movie, and you're like, oh, here's the movie, enjoy this. And now you guys leave. We're gonna sterilize everyththing and let the next person in.
Virtually, they may be able to do stuff virtually, but I don't see how they can have the physical festivals.
Well, we do have the Emmys first, so Emmy Awards, which is hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. So that's gonna really show us what inventiveness and what they can come up with. When
are they doing that virtual?
It's gonna have to be. What option are they gonna have? There's no.
I haven't heard them say either way, so I didn't know.
Yeah. So Joe, what's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's smart to plan for the best and prepare for the worst, as they say. And I think that, even if theaters, don't reopen, which it looks like they are, there's still going to be a year of cinema that can be celebrated. But I think one of the first things we're going to see is the ESPYs are being held and how they handle that. I know there's no red carpet. We can have people social distance in the theater. I think designers could go nuts with the masking with the dresses, etc. But I think more importantly, I think there is a lot of work out there that deserves to be commended and saluted and given awards. And usually by the time the Oscar votes are submitted, a slew of Oscar season flicks have made their ways through cinemas, and now we don't have that. And I think it's going to force the Academy to look deeper into the cinematic vault to determine what was the best of the year. And I think we're going to see some interesting choices. But that being said, you're looking at a lot of people some people are starting to put out mid-year best ofs, and The Invisible Man is up there, and that movie was incredible. But it really says more about our year that one of the best films of the year is a Blumhouse remake of The Invisible Man than anything else. So I think we still need to see, and the fact that not just that the Oscars are being held in late April, but now the deadline of when you can release the film has been stretched to the end of February. Dr. Fauci, our favorite doctor, has said that he's pretty confident there may be a vaccine in December. And if that's the case, then this is totally doable. But yet again, and like Jami said, we don't know what's going to happen. And because of that, I think they're planning to have it, and we're going to see these movies that come out streaming. And honestly, so many members of the Academy are watching on screeners nowadays anyway. It's almost like, it's sad, but it's almost like the audience doesn't really matter in terms of what the Oscar situation is. So a lot of things up in the air, but there's a lot of potential for being able to pull this off.
I was just going to say that, a large amount of people that work in the entertainment industry have lost their job or been furloughed to the pandemic. And so I think that the Academy should take into consideration that if the top 1% who are rich and still have their jobs then celebrate themselves when everyone else is still unemployed in April, it may leave a bad taste in a lot of people who work in the entertainment industries, mouths. And I'm talking about grips on productions. I'm talking about accountants. I'm talking about all the people that work in the entertainment industry, craft service, who are out of jobs and may not have their industries come back. So to celebrate yourself and pat yourself on the back because you're the top 1%, it could be, it could not look good.
This is true, but it's also you actually been in those situations yourself, and I feel that unfortunately there's always been a top 1%, and there are tiers upon tiers in Hollywood already. So I feel like they would still do it anyways, just because they want to have the celebrities and the sponsors in the same room together or something. So I feel
I'm not saying they wouldn't do it, but they would certainly do it, but it would look poorly, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It wouldn't be sensitive.
So I mean, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of stuff still to happen. The main thing that we're looking at, of course, the BAFTAs were moved back to. They are earlier. They are April 11th, actually. So British Academy of Film and Television Arts. Critics' Choice just announced as well. March 7th is when they move theirs back. So that's when we're looking for there as well. And then the Oscars, this announcement about moving back just came after they announced that from now on, Best Picture will always have 10 films, right? It will always have 10 films. And also going forward, they have a task force that's been made to ensure representation and inclusion as well. So there's definitely a lot of things that are changing about this year when it comes to critics, movies, things like that too. So we'll definitely have to see how this all works out. As I've told Jami in the past, that he's like, I'm going to the Oscars. I'm like, I can't get any content at the Oscars. Like, I can see nice people in dresses going by, but unless I'm the top 10, I'm not going to get any of the big celebs that I want to get. I mean, who is the best celeb you ever got on that carpet? I know you got some great video of people and posing and stuff, but what was the best celebrity you think, or person who was there?
You mean to get an interview with?
Interview with yourself on Oscars carpet, yeah.
Well, that was never why I was on the Oscars carpet. I was never there to get interviews. I was there to just get the shots of the arrivals. So we got everyone that we wanted, but we weren't trying to get interviews.
I gotcha. See, I'd go there just for interviews. I could see the pretty people in the B-roll footage. Like I'm fine. Like I'm there to celebrate the film and talk to people, and I'm just not gonna get it there. So that's why I've kind of do that. Same thing with Cannes. Like, you've been to Cannes, which is amazing, but at the same time, unless I'm on, unless I have like a bunch of junkets that I'm set up for there, it's just not gonna work in my favor either. So what are you gonna do? All right, let's move on to our final topic, and this is the big one, the one I definitely want to talk about, and that is Batman versus Iron Man. These two billionaires, these two geniuses, these two heroes and leads. I mean, it's amazing. So we're gonna start with Joel, and Joel, you are a Batman guy, correct?
I am traditionally, but when it came to this question, I went with Iron Man.
Yeah. So Iron Man is where you went. Sorry, I didn't have it here. I have it backwards for some reason here. All right. So you went with Iron Man, and Jamie, you went with Batman. So let's talk about that. Why are we looking at these two guys? Of course, they've been put up against each other many times. They have a lot of similarities within their own universes. So Joel, let's start with you. Batman, Bruce Wayne. What is it about Batman you think is I guess if they went up against each other, whether it was a Bruce Wayne against Tony Stark or Batman versus Iron Man, why are you on the Iron Man side?
I am on the Iron Man side because one of my favorite lines, speaking of I think it was Justice League, when somebody asked Batman, I think it was Flash asked Batman, "What's your superpower?" And Ben Affleck said, "I'm rich." So when it comes to your billionaire superheroes, it all comes down to the gadgets. These guys are both not endowed with superpowers. Everything they use is created for them. And Batman is great and all. It's just, the technology isn't necessarily as top tier. Tony Stark, Iron Man, on the other hand, he has a brilliant scientific mind who has created all of his gadgets and has the type of tech that would just overpower Batman every time. He has rockets, for God's sake, on his feet and his hands, and he's a supercomputer running everything with him via voice commands. I just think that is what gives him the edge in the battle of the billionaires. And plus, if you look at the character itself and how he progressed over the Marvel Cinematic Universe, by the time Endgame arrived, he had a practical army of Iron Mans. And what's Batman got? Alfred? I just don't see it. And spoiler here for those two people who haven't seen Endgame or The Dark Knight Rises. Iron Man made the ultimate sacrifice, and Batman faked his death to go to Paris.
Right. Well, and there's something I want to talk about before we go back to Jamie. Is this especially in this one, I'm all about talking about movies, but I'm all about talking about comics and all this stuff too. But I don't want to delve too deep into the sci-fi of, well, in alternate universe number 3, Superman gave him his powers. Like, I don't want to get into that deep thing. We can get into all the specifics, things that touch comics and movies alike. Some of those things are definitely something that are based in the reality of things, of how these two characters work. So Batman side, let's go to Jamie.
Well, I agree with Joel. They have a lot of similarities, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark. But the big difference to me is that Bruce Wayne became Batman because of a tragedy in his life, the death of his parents, that really fueled him on this sort of vengeance journey, where Iron Man really just, Tony Stark did it for fun. He did it because he wanted the attention. He wanted people to know, I am Iron Man. So I think that shows you the difference between the two right there. Batman, Iron Man, Tony Stark was born really smart. Bruce Wayne is also, I believe he's the second highest intellect in DC Comics behind Lex Luthor. So he's very smart as well. But Iron Man basically built this tech and, puts it on and uses it. Bruce Wayne had to train with Ra's al Ghul, with Henry Ducard. He trained with Houdini in some of the early Golden Age comics. He became the second greatest detective in DC Comics behind the Elongated Man. And, the other thing I always go to is that in the comics, the only person to ever defeat Superman besides Doomsday is Batman. Batman beat Superman one-on-one in several different comics. Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, Jeff Loeb's Hush, and a couple other comics I can think of where Batman, with his smarts and his cunning and maybe sometimes a kryptonite ring, can defeat Superman. Now, I know you're going to say to me, but Tony Stark defeated Thanos. Did he? He had to time travel. He actually got defeated by Thanos in Infinity War and had to use some time travel shenanigans to have a second chance to beat him in Endgame. My point is, Batman wouldn't need to time travel for a second chance.
Well, and it's funny because
Batman would get him the first time. I go with Batman.
If you think about it, his whole his whole win actually was was kind of orchestrated by Doctor Strange too. The opportunity for that.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
One big road all the way down for that one moment, that one chance out of the billion. So that's
if Doctor Strange hadn't stepped in, Iron Man would have been dead on Thanos' planet in Infinity War.
Right. So there's definitely that stuff to go with it too. And when I look at these topics, like I'm very excited to talk about Batman, because Batman does have a bunch of stuff that people don't realize versus Tony Stark. Like, one of the things that he has above Tony Stark is he's got a crew. I mean, there is a lot of bat sidekicks and different things like that go along with it. Before we even get into Justice League, I mean, he's got a bunch of other people that he's taught, and he's kind of have his legacies. And of course, that's one of those things that you look at them, you think, well, some of these people are just regular street fighters and things like that too. But a lot of them are following in his footsteps. So there is definitely a legacy and help when you need it, I guess, is one of the things you want to look at for sure. And then when we get into the gadgets, they are a little more based in reality. And that's one thing that some people enjoy more, is the fact that we have some things that not necessarily are out today, but you could see in like 10 years, the way we're doing things now. You could see something this big being able to, clip on, and then a motor being strong enough to pull a person's body up at this point as well. So there's definitely a lot of gadgets out there that have that. My favorite, of course, is going to the Golden Age. You go to the old Batman, Adam West kind of, bat cuffs and binoculars and stuff like that. So it was always inventive and it was always fun. So that's there. And then you talk about Alfred. I guess Iron Man's is a digital.
Well, in the comics, Jarvis was a real person before the MCU made him digital.
That's true. And of course, he did have his day be working for the original Stark as well. So the real Jarvis, anyways.
Right.
But it's always good to have a butler take your mind off some other things too. Some other points I do want to make is we haven't really got into some of the super suits and some of the other gadgets too. So I guess let's get into talking about that. So let's talk Joel, let's talk Iron Man, and let's talk about some of the gadgets and things he has to kind of put him above. So you're talking about the fact that he had the the big party with all the different suits and stuff, but he's made some other stuff too, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, and that's why I think he's got a bit of an issue with him driving him as a justice kind of realm. He may not have had a tragedy that spurred him, but I mean, he and his father, I mean, they were basically arms dealers, and he had a lot of guilt. I mean, how many innocents were killed? How many people, period, were killed by the weapons that were created by Stark? So I feel like he's driven by a bit of an altruistic way too, as much as I can say that for somebody as narcissistic as Tony Stark. But yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of things that he's developed that he could use for good. Of course, there's a nice shot of the Hulkbuster. There's so much. It's almost like if he could dream it, it could. It could happen. But we also, a lot of us that watched Infinity War, and I know I'm picking Tony Stark Iron Man here, but a lot of what happened was his fault. So I mean, we could really argue that he felt the need to fix the problem that he created. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go on with Tony Stark, intelligence wise, gadget wise. But I like what Jami was saying about what Batman had to train, and you didn't really see much training with Tony Stark. But then again, he didn't feel he had to.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about fixing some of the things. Like, would Batman have made an Ultron? Would he have made those kind of mistakes? I mean, Batman tends to think things through like 10 steps ahead, and so that's the kind of thing where you see these issues as well. And even though Batman is dark, he's always kind of led his own way. But he's never, in the comics, Tony Stark has been an alcoholic and on drugs, I believe, at some points too. So he kind of leads towards that lifestyle, which is
the closest I could I could say is Bruce Wayne's paranoia. And that was definitely shown in Grant Morrison's Tower of Babel, which was what Justice League Doom, the animated film, was based on. The idea that Batman kept secret computer files of how he could beat the Justice League himself in case they ever went rogue. And then, of course, the villains got those files and used those plans to take down the Justice League themselves. Right. And so everyone in the Justice League, when they found out that the villains used Batman's basic plans, they were kind of like, oh, I don't know, Batman, you know, you're too paranoid, you know, that kind of thing. Can we trust you? So if there's any been sort of issue with Batman, you're right. It's not alcoholism. It's not some of these exterior things. It's always been sort of internal, his own paranoia, his own use of fear and violence for justice.
And wasn't
and I just
go for it.
I just wanted to finish a point from before, which was if Batman can beat Superman in a fight, he can definitely take Iron Man out. If you can take Superman out, you can take Iron Man out. That's my point.
Okay,
yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with that.
There is hard to argue with that too. And you know, that's one thing we didn't really get into is, of course, when you look into their worlds, is you know, who they have on their backs. And so Batman's side, of course, we have the Justice League. You know, we have the Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg. And of course, if you go even deeper into the comic book world, there's, you know, Green Lantern,
Martian Manhunter.
There's a lot of other ones that depending on the order that you want to go with. Of course, Justice League is definitely a higher echelon group when it comes to all the power and everything they have. But let's not discount these guys either. I mean, the Avengers are pretty powerful too. The problem is, though, that they don't have as many gods, I guess, is the point when it comes to them. You have Thor, you have some powerful people, but Black Widow and actually, I don't even know why I have that. I took the wrong picture there. We're missing a couple of good ones there. Hawkeye's not in there. And a couple others that should be in there. But the Avengers are so much, I guess there's so many more Avengers too. Of course, Justice League can be expanded as well. So it's interesting to see what they have on their backs. And then going into the Batman side, we showed the Hulkbuster, but Batman, if you follow any of the comics, had Hellbat, which fought Darkseid. And this is his super armor that he kind of made too, which is something that, as we've seen in the movies, you know, his tech, he kind of rises to the occasion, which is one of the things that I do like about him too, because Tony Stark has a higher IQ, 100%. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that Tony Stark is smarter. It's just that when you look at Batman, he tends to rise to the occasion to figure out how to fight Superman, how to make these things happen. So who's to say that one day we don't see, you know, the Batmobile with a special EMP that can take out armor or different things like that. And that's always depending on which Batmobile you like, because there's that one. And then we have our last one before the new Batman coming out, I guess. And then this one right here, which is, I have no idea why. Like, this is not how you hide in the dark or in the shadows. That's not a good option for anybody, except Joel Schumacher and his nipples, I guess, his nipple suits. So
is that the Val Kilmer?
That's the
car?
Val Kilmer. Yeah. Because
do you know who owns that in real life?
Who owns that in real life?
Oh, that very famous comedian, but he's the puppet comedian from Vegas. You know who I'm talking about?
Terry Fader?
No, Jeff Dunham. Yes.
I did not know that.
Yep. Because after Dark Knight Rises, Joel, you may have been there. They did a big thing where they had all the cars and all the costumes from all the Nolan movies down by the Staples Center in this like big like museum thing they were doing. And they had all the cars. And when they had a press conference, Dunham was there because he's the owner of the Batman Forever car. And so they had to, you know, do a deal with him to get it there.
Let's be fair, though. Puppets and this car kind of go together. I mean, there's no, there's no other option. You're like, oh yeah, that's the guy who does puppets. He also owns that car. You're like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. I mean, I'm not going against that at all. So I was looking through a bunch of articles too about all this too, and so we're looking at the positives and the negatives of these people. So we'll start with the positives of Batman. Of course, he has his gadgets and his tech that he can kind of go through too. He's got one of the smartest computers, but of course, Tony Stark has his AI, which you can't really beat the AI. But Batman does have martial arts, the physical side, the fighting side. I mean, in the comic books, they say he is like a black belt in like 120 different styles. You know, he's amazing at 4, but he incorporates things to make his own. I bet somewhere out there in a comic, there's like a Batman style fighting style. There's like Krav Maga meets like 18 different things already. So he of course has his Batmobiles, which is how he gets around. He has his whole team, which is big as well. As you said, the detective skills are one of the things that make him amazing. You know, that moment for him to stop, what you see in the comic books as well as in the cartoons, he's always the guy who says, let's stop for a second. I want to figure this out, because he wants an answer to the equation, which is always great. Tony Stark tends to be a little more impetuous, and he tends to jump at everything and wants to go after it, which is great if you're inventing and you're kind of breaking walls, but those walls can come back and crash on you. Of course, we talked about Alfred, the Hellbat suit, and of course his backup, which is Justice League. On the Iron Man side, he is smarter. I mean, they said the IQs of the two different ones, like Tony Stark is like 200 something, while Batman is like 190 or something like that. So there's no question that Tony Stark is smarter. But where do those skills and those smarts kind of come in, I guess, is one of the things I definitely was wondering. The Hulkbuster suit, of course. And one of the big things, of course, is he can fly. Iron Man can fly. Like, which is the you know, I have the higher ground is a term for, is a
well,
reason.
Batman's got a plane.
He's got a plane. How
Technically, Tony Stark can't fly. I mean, you could say that he's basically in a flying suit, which is not unlike a plane.
Okay, I'm gonna let Joe fight you on this. So, talk about the difference in your mind on flying Batman versus Iron Man.
Well, we can just boil it down to one scene. How would Batman's plane help rescue all those people off that crashing airliner, whereas Tony Stark and Iron Man was able to fly up there with his outfits and machine and all that and save all those people? Batman couldn't get out of the plane because he'd fall down to earth. But that's kind of, you know.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because cables.
But he'd use the plane to save the people.
Yeah, we've seen
right.
Batman use cables before.
A net would come out. Yeah. I guess I'm just saying that when you build a suit to fly or you build a machine to fly, I don't know what the difference is.
I think the difference is the fact that the availability of it. So yes. Batman, he has to go and jump in the bat plane to start. I mean, even if it has jets, it has a couple. It has some time before it launches. Iron Man is up in a second, so he could be fighting on the ground and he's in the air, and he like, just the availability and the mobility of it, I think, is what comes into play more than anything. The ability to say, I need to get over there, versus Batman's like, I gotta run half a mile back to find my freaking plane. Or
if you're talking Iron Man now with a bat
plane, so.
If you're talking about Iron Man now with the nano suit, I would agree. Yeah, that's much faster. But the original Iron Man, he had to go get in the suit. Remember, the whole thing had to come down on him. So with the end game nanomites, totally agree with you.
Well, but the suit was still always available, and he didn't show up without the suit anyways, you know? We're not talking about Tony Stark fighting Bruce Wayne, because that would just be him punching Tony Stark in the face constantly with no recourse whatsoever. So that's a different, easier fight. We know who would win that one, 100%. But when it comes to all these toys and stuff, like, that's one of those things that I definitely look at too. And let's not discount the fact that although Batman is a detective, Tony Stark is a problem solver. Like, he solves big, huge problems, like time, you know, how to make a time machine, how to create, you know, new forms of energy and all these different things too. So there's different levels of things too. And that's where the smarts kind of comes into play. And let's not discount the fact that he is richer. They've said before too, Tony Stark is richer than Batman. Batman is a billionaire. Let's not, you know, he's there, but he's like 10 to 15 billion dollars, I think, is where he's around, versus Tony Stark is like 80 billion, 100 billion. And then not only that, but he has government contracts and huge money, whereas Wayne Tech tends to be its own thing, and definitely it's around the world as we see in the movies, but it's not something as overbearing as when you look at the movies and you see, what Stark Enterprises, you could tell, is in part of everything. If this is if Tony Stark was right now, my printer would be part of Stark Enterprises, would be a chip in there, and this mic would have a Stark Enterprises, and this everything would have Stark Enterprises in part of it somewhere. So that's one of those things that I definitely look at. And then we talked about the Avengers too. So those are my thoughts going back and forth between those.
Derek.
Yeah.
Can I pose this question?
Do it.
Who would you trust to save your life? Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne? I would trust Bruce Wayne over Tony Stark to save my life.
I guess it depends on the situation, though, right? Like what
it doesn't to me.
What's it really? So
yeah, I would take Bruce Wayne any day over the week. I would trust Bruce Wayne to do the right thing and to save my life over Tony Stark, no matter what the situation.
So if aliens are if aliens are like coming in, I'm in a group of people and they're just shooting.
I saw Batman take an alien down in that movie. You know what I'm talking about, and a Predator.
That's the thing, though, and Alien, and that's one thing that I'm not trying to fight Joel's side here because I love both sides here. But the problem is, though, mass destruction side, Iron Man's gonna win. I mean, he's got the mass destruction.
And Batman's taking on Apocalypse and the New Gods. No, he's fought his
one-on-one.
He's fought aliens.
One-on-one. Like it's him jumping away and throwing grenades and different things like that. But his one-on-one game is amazing. The question is, though, that depending if I'm being fought at or there's a war going on, one Batman can only do so much versus one Iron Man suit can do a crap ton as well. Although,
but I'm not talking about their suits. About which human being would you trust to put your life in their hands?
I'm gonna throw it over to Joe.
I would trust Bruce Wayne over Tony Stark.
Okay, so Joe, what's your thought on this? Because I'm not fighting either side of this yet. So.
Well, I'm going to go back to my earlier point. Is I think what's driving Tony Stark to get into the psychology of it is decades and decades of war blood on his hands, blood on his family's hands, and I think that is a real driving force for him as an individual. Forget being Iron Man. And I think that's why I would go with him to save my life, because I think he is constantly aware of how many lives his family's name has taken previously.
Also remember, Bruce Wayne pretends to be a selfish playboy millionaire. Tony Stark was a selfish playboy millionaire. So I don't know. If you're asking me whose life would I put my hands in, Bruce Wayne any day of the week over Tony Stark. Don't get me wrong. I love Tony Stark. We love him because he was a selfish prick, right?
Right.
But
exactly.
Still, when it comes down to it, I trust Bruce Wayne.
I trust Bruce Wayne. Like I wouldn't invite him out to a party. He's not as fun as you would probably think. Even if he was in his.
No, that's true. Tony is way more fun at a party. I'll give you that. You win. Tony is way more fun at a party. Bruce is in the corner brooding about his parents. No. I get it.
Right.
I get it.
Perfect word.
Yeah.
Well, but there's also the thought of who's ready to go in a moment too, and I think that's going to be Iron Man, right? Depending on the thing, depending on where it comes down to. Just because the suit's available now, he's nanotech. I mean, he was talking to Doctor Strange in Infinity War, and then bam, he just had a couple pull strings, and there he goes. Batman's got to go find one of the Wayne Tech buildings somewhere, and then he's got to
but in the movies he always seems to get there pretty quick. I know technically it would take him longer, but he seems to get there pretty much when they need him. But I agree with you. Technically, in reality, it would take longer. I agree, but he always seems to be there when you need him.
Yeah, but they never talk about the fact that, okay, we see the bat signal up in the air. Like, what's the drive time between Wayne Manor and downtown Gotham? So I don't know what the downtime. It's like, oh, Batman's coming. It takes him about 25 minutes on the usual. So we'll see if he's not here already.
That's a good point. If we're using reality, but in the world of DC Comics, Batman's there as soon as you need him.
Well, if you go to the world of reality, Batman wins because most of his stuff is based in reality. And that's one of the things you look at too. There's no real arc reactor out there. There's no, there's weapons that they even talked about, like some of these pulse weapons and different things that are out there now, but they're the size of tanks. Like there's not like something that just fits on an arm and you can shoot it and then shoot it again and again. So that's not really an option now. So Batman, if we're basing in reality, does deliver. I mean, that's what the guy does. He started from the smaller side of things. Like I said, the 60s Adam West just being a hero who wanted to help. Iron Man, of course, when he started his comics, his stuff was very rough as well. I mean, for some reason, it took them a while to think about the fact that Iron Man could be a little bit more, and he could have more than just flight and repulsor and strength. So there's a bunch of stuff that kind of came about as we went through the comics too. So, all right, so let's get close to ending this out here, and let's go with each of your sides. You guys get a chance to close out and give us your opinion. So, Joel, let's start with you. Iron Man, why is he the guy who's going to win this fight?
Because he has the tech, he's got the brains, he's got the money. There's very little that he can't think of that he couldn't create. And like you said earlier, he's there on a moment's notice. He doesn't need to wait, go into the Bat Cave, and what am I going to take? The plane, the car, the motorcycle? I'm not really sure. Tony Stark, boom, you need him, he's gone. That being said, I'm having researched this and thought about it, I'm really struck at the incredible parallels between these two. That is really rich, that Batman, is almost at the heart of the Justice League, whether he wants to be or not. And Tony Stark clearly is, the heart of the Avengers. And you couldn't have compared two better comic characters if you tried. But that being said, I'm in trouble and I have a phone. I'm calling Tony.
Well, that's interesting. All right, so let's go to, let's call it the bat signal and go to Jami. What are we looking at here?
Well, Joel brings up some good points. Look, there are a lot of similarities between Iron Man and Batman. And as we were talking before, there's a lot of similarities between the Justice League and the Avengers. And this is basically because the DC characters were around 30, 40 years before the Marvel characters. And I'm not saying that the Marvel characters were stolen from the DC characters, but I think somewhat derived from, you know what I mean? I think, each one has an archer, each one has a water guy, each one has a speedster. So, they're a little bit derived. And I think Iron Man was derived some ways from Batman. And at the end of the day, Batman, he's got the purpose, right? He was, has the purpose from the tragedy that he survived. He's got the dedication and the skills from years of preparation and training. And look, at the end of the day, the guy beats Superman in a fight. So what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, you don't think he can take Iron Man? He took out an alien from Krypton. So I would put my money on Bruce Wayne. I would put my money on Bruce Wayne, man. Bruce Wayne, I think, would save me before Tony Stark.
Now, and that's interesting too, because one of my issues with Superman is that he's too powerful. I mean, if you look at the comics, there's been points where he has moved planets. I mean, and you talk about speed. Oh, he's so fast. But then he goes from the sun to the earth in like 6 minutes of flight, they say.
Yes, and which is my point, that Batman can beat him, then game over. He can beat anyone.
But let's be honest, if Superman was like a dark side fight or a doomsday fight where he's trying to kill, he could have just burned Batman from like a mile away and just gone. I mean, he could have done super speed and gone through and destroyed.
Batman's been hit by Darkseid's Omega beams and survived. Let me say that again. Batman has been hit by Darkseid's Omega beams, Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, and he survived.
Yeah, but they weren't as strong as they are in the comics. Because in the comics, they automatically do. Look, if he's got a human body. He's got a human body.
I'm gonna get you, Dick.
But that's my issue too. Like, of course, there's a lot of issues when it comes to comic books and how they put the comics versus the TV. I mean, the amount of times I've yelled at the screen watching Flash, going, he's got super speed. Why does he stop, wait three beats, and try to punch someone, and then he gets hit? Like, he should have saw that punch coming at least 5 minutes ago, and still he gets hit by a regular guy with a regular speed and all. So there's a lot of stuff like that which really irks me. But the problem is they need to handicap all these superheroes because they've made him so powerful over the time. And that's why it's interesting to see, like, the Avengers. I was really happy with that because Thanos was a powerful character unto himself. Like he got hit, he got hurt, but he was still, with his sword and doing some crazy stuff. So you saw the fact that he was a Titan. He was amazing. So that's something that I did enjoy in that world. So when it comes down to it, like I enjoy both the characters for who they are. Both of them deliver something along the same lines, but just a different flavor. Bruce Wayne has, I feel like he has the story, Not only that, he's got the villains. I mean, he's got the Joker. You've got Two-Face. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the Mandarin. I love, a bunch of people like that on that side. But
his Rogues Gallery may be the best Rogues Gallery in comics.
It has to be.
Spider-Man would be the only. I would think Spider-Man and Superman may be rival, but there's no one else.
Yeah. And not to use Iron Man's words against him here, because I'm trying to make my own point. Yeah. But I will never forget that first Iron Man junket when Robert Downey Jr. said, "A superhero movie is only as good as its villain."
Right.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Whiplash is great, but he's no Joker. And of course, Heath Ledger defined that in The Dark Knight. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks, as they see the cover of The Dark Knight, they think of anything but Heath Ledger. There's no way. And his Joker is still, like, that's what we're going to fight later on too. Another topic is going to be the best Joker. But when it comes down to it, his Joker is amazing, and it kind of redefined the role, and so that's really where we come into play there. But as we went into crew as well, so we have the Rogues Gallery there, and I think he does have a better story. Iron Man does have, he just has the speed right now because of the movies, because of how well Marvel is versus DC and making movies and making universes. There's just so much more kids who are which is surprising. Our generation, Batman was the gold standard, but now it's going to be Iron Man going for the next 10 to 15, maybe 20 years because of these movies. And it's so surprising. It's not going to be Captain America or,
and I always have to remind people, especially, like my cousin's kids and who have grown up once on the MCU and think that, Iron Man's the biggest superhero of all time. Like before 2008, I mean, Iron Man was like a third tier character in the Marvel universe at best. I mean, he was not the marquee character that the MCU has created.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel bad for those kids in that 2 to 3 year period where Fantastic Four was the only comic book movie out. and you already see Chris Evans as the and Michael Chiklis as the Thing, and so there's some kids.
No, but what about our generation? All we had was Christopher Reeves. We had Michael Keaton, and then we got
two gold standards.
I agree, but Lou Ferrigno and on TV, Linda Carter. But you know what I mean. We had the Fantastic Four from Roger Corman. We had that Spider-Man with the guy from Sound of Music. We had the bad Captain America. I mean, we had terrible Marvel stuff.
Yes, we did.
I mean, we grew up with the worst. The best Marvel thing we grew up with in live action was Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, easily. There wasn't anything else out there.
There's nothing. Remember the Thor they introduced in the later episodes of Hulk, and they did one with the Daredevil too. I think it was Rex Reed was the Daredevil.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Rex Harrison. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I think back to those two, but then again I think back to where we started to kind of
Howard the Duck.
Was it Spider-Man or was it Blade first that really kind of they
Blade.
grounded us? Blade.
Wesley Snipes' Blade, I think, is what started the entire superhero
definitely
movie thing. Because then when Blade was a hit, then Fox saw that and said, "Oh, I guess we could do X-Men," and then Spider-Man, and then it was just the eventual snowball.
Yeah.
Of 20 years.
I'm gonna have a big problem when we have our next Wolverine and some kids like, "This is my Wolverine." I'm like, Hugh Jackman bled for that Wolverine. Like you don't know who you're talking about.
Right.
Like if they remade Godfather and they're like, "This is my Corleone," you're like, "No, it is not. You need to go back here and watch this right now."
I mean, I'm sure I've met 20-year-olds who think Hayden Christensen is their Anakin. You know what I mean? Like, no, I mean, it's for real. And they look at it the way we look at the original trilogy. They look at the prequels. And so who are we to say,
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't like them, but who am I to tell you your childhood? I wouldn't want someone to older than us to tell us our childhood sucked. So who am I to tell someone else, hey, the prequels aren't good. If that's what you grew up loving, that's what you grew up loving.
Well, I'm gonna have fights with these later on as I get older. One day, someone's going to remake Pee Wee Herman with someone besides Paul Rubens, and I'm really gonna explode. So that's gonna be my issue. Or if they ever remake, I don't know, let's say both Coen brothers die, they remake Lebowski for some reason, like they allow it to happen. All right, so let's tally up here. Like I said, both of these are amazing. I'm a huge fan of both worlds. And when it comes to Tony Stark, I think he is a genius. I think he's powerful, and I think he is someone who can lead the pack while also kind of like balking at that power. And then Batman he's just the guy who rises to the occasion. I mean, he rises to anything that comes to him, whether it is fighting Darkseid, whether it is a super suit, whether it's figuring out how to fix the world too. So I thought about this already, and I'm listening to both your arguments. Unfortunately, I have to go with the one, and my side is going to be Batman. I'm sorry. It has to be Batman. I think Batman, not only does he have, what he has as a physical being and his own story, but at the end of the day, he does rise to the occasion. Like, that's what he does every time. And Tony Stark does have a bunch of power. Tony Stark does have those things. But at the same time, I can't think of a time when I couldn't think that Batman couldn't rise to the occasion to beat Tony Stark. I feel like if it was the other way around, Tony Stark would throw a bunch of things at him. But Tony Stark's, outside of having all those extra suits in number 3, never had like, well, I've got 3 layers of extra things in case this doesn't work. I feel like Batman has like contingency upon contingency upon contingency, and that's how he would win at the end of the day, without getting into Justice League and without getting into Avengers really too much. The gadget side of things, I feel like Batman uses the gadgets he needs to, and he creates what he needs at the same time. So you can have a grapple hook when you're in, Gotham, but then again, you can have some super huge laser satellite station to hold all Justice League in space, the Citadel, that's just kind of floating around with lasers and, earth-ending weapons at the same time too. So, and you brought up a good point earlier, Jamie, with that episode with, I think it was Savage found all of his notes on how to kill the Justice League. And I feel if there was an Iron Man out there, Batman would have 8 different ways to destroy Iron Man ready to go. So, Joel, I definitely agree that Iron Man is powerful, and he does have a lot of he's just more fun, and kids love him more too. The character, he lights up, and because of the movies, I think he's great. I just feel like at the end of the day, Batman's gonna win this one. And it's funny because I looked online, I was looking at all the arguments, and this is a pretty even argument. I mean, I don't know if you guys looked online too, but there's a lot of sites that are like Batman wins this one, Iron Man wins this one, and they're all different like notations on why, and in the top 10 reasons, and Iron Man gets 6 out of 10, or Batman gets 6 out of 10, and it's always like barely 6 out of 10. It's never like, okay, well, 10 out of 10, Iron Man wins or Batman wins. So that's a very close argument. So that's where I think my side lies. If anyone out there has a different opinion, if you feel something's been missed, and again, let's not delve too much deep into comic book world. I'm sure Tony Stark might have made his own, intelligent planet that could have destroyed something that we don't know about, or Batman, went back in time to do something else as well. And so let's not get into that. But if you can give me some great arguments, we'll definitely post them and talk about them in the future. So moving on from there, let's talk last minute here about what you guys are watching and what people should watch. So let's start with you, Joe. What are you watching right now, and what should people watch?
I cannot recommend enough the HBO series Watchmen. I saw it, when it came out. It's also extremely timely right now. And I noticed that I read somewhere yesterday that HBO is making it available for free for people to see. So I would definitely recommend Watchmen. But I'm also very into a show also on HBO called Run, with Domhnall Gleeson, which is just fantastic chemistry. It's only about 7 episodes for the first season. And I've actually just now dove into Ozark because everyone is raving about Ozark. So I dove in, and yeah, it's pretty heavy.
That's awesome. Well, Jamie, let's go to you. What is What is it you are watching right now, and what should people be watching?
Yeah, just finished season 1 of Doom Patrol. I had seen a couple of the first episodes when it came out, and then just never finished this binging it. So I finally finished it, getting ready for season 2 to be released tomorrow, next week, maybe soon on HBO Max and DC Universe. I went back and saw season 1 and then watched season 2 of Afterlife. That's Ricky Gervais's show on Netflix. That's incredible. If you're a Ricky Gervais fan, you'll love it. But I like it better than Derek, and I think it's the best he's probably done since the Office and the Ricky Gervais cartoon. So I really like that a lot. I went back and watched Goliath. That's that Billy Bob Thornton series on Amazon. That's got 3 seasons out. I had never seen it and heard good things about it, and I liked it. I think the first 2 seasons are probably the best. And I really love this show called Bosch on Amazon with Titus Welliver.
Oh, yeah.
And they just released, I think, the 5th season, and I watched that, and that's a pretty great show as well. So I would recommend all of that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I actually read all the Harry Bosch novels, so I'm a big fan of Hieronymus Bosch, and and so it's one of those shows that the character delivers pretty well. It aligns really well with it, as opposed to Jack Reacher, where we get a 6'7" blonde, huge hulking guy who ends up being Tom Cruise in the movie. So there's some things that
and Titus is great because he's one of those actors that's been around forever. We know him from Deadwood. We've seen him in a million things, and this is a great marriage of his abilities, the character, and he really makes the show. And the show's great too because it's produced by a lot of people from who worked on The Wire, 24, and Sopranos. Right. So you see a lot of Wire actors, a lot of Lance Hendrick is in it, and wait, did I say that right? Lance Reddick from The Wire. And so there's a lot of Wire and 24 alumni kind of pop up on it. It's a really good show.
All right, and then I have to talk about, if you're here for Batman versus Iron Man, you're already into the comic book world. If you got to this point already, congratulations. So I do have to back Jami up on Doom Patrol. It is a great show. It's so much fun. If you watched the first season of Titans and you thought that's what DC Universe was about, you are so wrong. That was terrible. And season 2 of Titans is actually way better than season 1 by far.
Yes.
But Doom Patrol started off great from the beginning. It is so quirky. It is so fun. So I want you all, if you get a chance, check it out. Of course, You Should Have Left from Blumhouse 2 just came out. Kevin Bacon, I couldn't talk any more about it. The nicest guy. And he had some great things. I actually got an interview a couple days ago. I talked to him about that as well as Apollo 13, and he had unbelievably nice things to say about Bill Paxton, which I love because Bill Paxton in my heart constantly. Recently, I've rewatched Edge of Tomorrow, which had Bill Paxton as well, and a couple other movies too. Right. I do try to catch up with some anime that's out there. Netflix is constantly releasing a bunch of anime out there too. I did catch the second season of Doom Patrol, which is great. So definitely watch that. And I think the last thing I will talk about is actually the rest of my life this weekend is going to be The Last of Us 2. If you're a gamer, if you love PlayStation, it's just one of those crazy deep stories, and it's going to be something that's going to kind of define my weekend. There's some games out there I don't even touch because I know it's 100 hours minimum to finish this game. So I am not going to get in that because that means I did nothing for a month. Which, if I had the money, that'd be great. But I need to work and I need to create these things and do stuff. So I need to kind of get out there. Outside of that, make sure to message and comment on this video. Let us know what you're watching as well. We would love to hear it. And besides that, just enjoy. Be healthy. Be safe. Be entertained. There's so many great things out there right now. A lot of B movies. I'm not going to lie to you. But we are going to get some new stuff sooner than later. And until then, Hulu, Netflix, they're still pushing forward. Crossing Swords, made by the guys who did Robot Chicken. It just came out on Hulu, and it's a little rough in the beginning, but it gets a little bit better. And there's a lot of things like that. Solar Opposites, which just got picked up again for a second season, made by the same guys who did Rick and Morty. Very rough too in the first 3 or 4 episodes, but it gets better too. So thank you very much. Just to recap, the Oscars, we are looking forward to seeing what happens with them. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. Whatever they decide, if it's going to be teleconferenced in if they're going to swab everyone, right before and then do the fastest test ever to make sure that, this actor doesn't affect this actor and we don't lose all of Hollywood together. In the news, we talked about the Snyder Cut. We are definitely interested to see what happens with it. And we're all interested to see if $40 million can make a new movie at this size and this scale. Actually, when you were talking about it, I remember I actually was at CinemaCon, I want to say 2 weeks before Snyder unfortunately lost his child. And that's why those things went off. And I actually got a chance to talk to him, and we shared an Eisenberg hot dog, and he was a very, very cool guy. So it was very sad to see that happen. So I would love to see his vision come to life. Hey,
Derek, I was there at that CinemaCon too. Do you mean that was just 2 weeks when he presented that footage with everyone? That was okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about that moment in my mind, and I was like, he was still on the movie, and I thought that had happened after.
It was like a couple weeks before.
That was right before.
Yeah,
okay.
It was very sad because I remember his smile, and he was so excited about the authentic green jelly, green relish that they had for the hot dogs. And we were talking about all kinds of fun stuff. And
so he was still 100% on that movie at that point.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And
that was pre-Whedon.
That was, yes.
Okay.
So that's where, and then of course it all just kind of happened, and he had to, of course, go deal with those things, which is very sad. So it's interesting to see, his vision that could finally come out. So I'm excited for that. And last but not least, Batman versus Iron Man. Both sides very close, as I've said before, but in my mind, Batman edges out on this one. So the bat lights, and there he is. There he is. I don't know if I have. I don't think I have a Batman. I need a Batman. Iron Man. Do you have an Iron Man?
Do you have Iron Man? Oh, Fozzie.
Hey, man. You don't. In an alternate universe, like Fozzie is like the ultimate. He's gonna waka you into oblivion or something like that. I'm not gonna bring up toys here because I have so many, and we would spend the rest of the day just. That'd be another episode, just slowly bringing toys up and showing everybody, look at this. And unfortunately, I have a lot of pops and weird stuff. Here, I'll show you one this is my hero. This is the man that will change things at every time and every place. Here you go. John McClane.
Oh yeah, I got that's on my that's up here on my thing behind me. I got one back there too.
I have him, and I have the
Do you have Axel Foley?
Ho ho ho.
Oh, okay.
Which one do you said you have?
I have Axel Foley holding the bananas.
Oh no, I want
and the banana in the tailpipe.
Banana in the tailpipe trick.
And of course Damon Wayans, you go ahead and take those bananas. You go
ahead and take those bananas. That's fine.
This is what I have here. Ho ho ho, now I have a machine gun guy.
Oh, so. Right. Yep. So I only got the John McClane, and then I got Axel Foley from the other.
Yeah, I know, and that's a problem. There's only so many things I can have before things start to go a little.
I also have the A-Team. That's my other pride possession pops.
Oh, yeah?
Is I have all 4 of the A-Team. Yeah.
I have behind my green screen. I have a bunch of other stuff too. But like I said, that's another toy themed episode, which I'm excited to see what happens with Comic-Con at home. As of you guys have probably got the email, I want to see what happens with that, and if I'm able to buy any specific toys. I guess we'll see how that works out too. I don't need them, and I don't have space for them, but I'll buy them. That's just the way it works. So I want to thank everyone. Thank you for coming on, both of you, Jamie, Joel. Pleasure as always. Fun topics all the time. If anyone has any ideas on topics as well, feel free to post them too. Until next time, this has been You're Wrong. Here's Why, episode 10. See you guys later.